The hurricane history of Louisiana dates back to 1759. Since then, 176 hurricanes have struck the Louisiana coast. The average frequency is about 2 hurricanes every 3 years. 38 hurricanes have caused significant flooding in New Orleans. Hurricane flooding frequency is about once every 6.5 years. Hurricanes in the Louisiana region have a few natural causes. First is the location of Louisiana near the Gulf of Mexico. Second is low elevation, as most of it is near sea level. Next is subsidence, caused by the compaction of river-deposited sediments. Next is erosion of inactive delta lobes. Lastly is sea level rise due to global warming. In the 1980s, the Army Corps of Engineers proposed building levees and floodwalls to a necessary height to keep storm surge from Lake Pontchartrain and Lake Borgne from entering the city. This would also protect against hurricanes. They came up with a plan known as the Height Level Plan, which involved putting movable gates at the lake ends of the drainage canals. They also proposed to raise the height of levees on the canals. A levee is a mound of dirt piled up to prevent the inflow of water. Raising the height of a levee also requires widening the levee because dirt can't hold up to steep slopes. In an urban environment like New Orleans, widening a levee would require buyouts of property along the levee, which is very expensive. Instead, the Army Corps of Engineers created flood walls, which are much cheaper but can also be built steep and have a high level of protection. The Army Corps of Engineers also conducted tests on sheet pile flood walls, as seen in the picture. They were using the New Orleans Hurricane Protection System called the E99 study. Later analysis of this test found that they would likely fail as a result of deflection of the sheet pile. The results of the E99 study were misinterpreted, and the Corps determined that shorter sheet pile penetration depths could be used, resulting in a cost savings for construction of approximately $100 million. Despite all of the precautions taken by the Army Corps of Engineers, in the past 15 years, 3 large-scale hurricanes have devastated Louisiana. First, on October 3, 2002, Hurricane Lily hit Intercoastal City as a Category 1 hurricane. With wind gusts reaching 120 miles an hour, combined with over 6 inches of rain and storm surges of 12 feet, Hurricane Lily caused over $700 million in damage to Louisiana. A total of 237,000 people lost power, and offshore oil rigs were shut down for up to a week. Sugarcane crops were very horribly affected, and the damage totaled nearly $175 million. Luckily, no direct deaths were reported in correlation with Hurricane Lily. Hurricane Katrina was the deadliest and most destructive Atlantic tropical cyclone of the 2005 Atlantic hurricane season, and is noted as one of the deadliest hurricanes in history. It was the costliest natural disaster, as well as one of the 5 deadliest hurricanes in the history of the United States. The hurricane surge protection failures in New Orleans are considered the worst civil engineering disaster in U.S. history. This prompted a lawsuit against the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, mentioned earlier. They were the designers and builders of the levee system as mandated by the Flood Control Act of 1965. Judge Stanwood Duval of the U.S. District Court laid the blame on the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, but the federal agency could not be held liable because of sovereign immunity in the Flood Control Act of 1928. The last of the hurricanes I'll be speaking about is Hurricane Gustav, which hit Louisiana on August 31, 2008. Hurricane Gustav had already devastated Haiti and many other regions before it hit Louisiana. During this time, New Orleans Mayor Ray Nagin declared a dusk-till-dawn curfew and a large-scale evacuation. By that same afternoon, 1.9 million people had evacuated from southern Louisiana. This was the largest evacuation in the history of Louisiana, even surpassing Hurricane Katrina. 34 parishes were declared disaster areas. Wind speed reached 115 miles per hour and close to 50 people died. The wind damage alone destroyed hundreds of cars, houses, and buildings. Thank you for taking the time to watch my video on the hurricane history of the Louisiana region.